share my experience. Actually, deliberately, I was not very much in favor of sharing a PPT, because then what happens, I get confined to the subject, and not being a professor and being a professional, we move zigzag. And so I honestly didn't want to give a PowerPoint presentation. So, but at the end, since I was told, I thought people should not think that I am incapable of preparing a presentation. So I have shared, but my discussion will go mostly in the line where I would like to share my experience. First of all, I would like to address what Professor Srikant Patnaik said. It is not the size, it is the quality that matters. And the fact that you are giving a platform to various people, it is a great contribution of yours to the society. So I would congratulate him for the kind of efforts that you are making, and to establish a business, how a business entity and a management institute is not a small affair. So I must congratulate him also, and to sustain the quality education in a time of 2020 is not a very easy affair. Uh, I must start addressing that it is very important that we live in an environment of business. In an environment of business, it is the element of the business environment which are the major contributor to the system, GDP, economy, etc., etc. So they are the drivers, and therefore it is very important. And I have always said that society must recognize people who are part of the business, because they are the creative people and they are the people who are actually driving the economy. If economy today comes to a standstill, then all our luxury will go for a six. So I must congratulate all the management institutes, the management forum created to educate and continuously impart what is happening around you in the business world. I must also congratulate uh, Professor Gautam Mohanty for leading the B School Forum, and all the important management institutes being there. Many a times, these kind of forums help to unite people, unite the students, and to have a common platform to take them forward. As you know, India has been on a great uh, moving economy, and I would say the present generation, the present students sitting here are far more luckier than probably the generation I belong to. Because we are thinking that in a 50 over match, we are already on the 35th to 40th over. The slog over will slowly start. But you people will enjoy the entire 50 overs of a very dynamic India, which is moving forward, has become the fifth largest economy of the world from the 10th largest economy of the world. And it is expected that will soon become the third largest economy of the world, surpassing many of the well-known European countries, only leaving America and China. I'm not going into why we cannot be number one. Let's keep it aside for some time. Now, this is possible because the economy, the government, the entrepreneurs, the system, the globalization model, the people, the enthusiasm with which, or the ease of business with which the business world has been moving. And that is why today, from A to Z, I would consider we are in a far better position than probably what we were about 20 years back. Still better than what we were maybe 30, 40 years before. Now, management students, and management professors have been doing a great service, and observing the 21st of February as the management day is very, very important, because, like Professor Mohanty said, you have Doctors' Day, you have Chartered Accountants' Day, you have day for everybody, and following 21st as the Management Day itself symbolizes the consolidation and the process of evolution for the management students. Now, when I was asked that what topic you would like to speak, I said that all of you are an expert in your own field and you have been learning every day. Probably let me share some of my thought as the journey of a businessman or an entrepreneur in the world where we find that they probably don't get as much appreciation as they deserve. I have always said it is the entrepreneur, the creative people, the businessman who add value to the system. And for your information, that all those taxes are contributed by these people or a subset of the universal business world. The government people, they also get the salary from these people's hard earned taxpayers' money. And therefore, I always have a grievance that the businessman deserves much more appreciation than what they are getting today in this business world. Now, as you know, not everybody can be a businessman. A businessman or an entrepreneur or an industrialist, to be what we are trying to conceive today, requires some ideas. And that idea should not be a classroom or theoretical idea. It has to be very hard on the field. And while doing so, one has to also look at the cultural and social dynamics in which our society is moving. So it's not easy, and it was far more difficult when we were in the beginning of our career to move from the routine jobs to be an entrepreneur. And in fact, those days, those of you understand Odia, people used to say, कुछ नहीं तो एक सरकारी नौकरी हो जाए तो जिंदगी हो गया बन गया. And to put it more crudely, it is said that chakri karibo policy macho khaibo ilisi. You know, if you know that hilsa fish is one of the best, and you can have it if you do police job. So the attraction for government job was far more higher than possibly what it is today. Still, the craze for government job is there, but slowly, as an advanced economic society, people are moving from the government job to be an entrepreneur, to be a consumer of jobs, to a creator of job. So, and for that, one has to really work very hard to be an entrepreneur. Like all of you who are students today will have an easy option to get into a job, do some marketing of a product, or do some finance management, do some HR job. But some of you, or maybe many of you, if you have really understood the business and if you have the appetite to do business, possibly you will also like to be an entrepreneur. And for becoming an entrepreneur, you should have hunger in your stomach. You should not be satisfied with just some salary, just something which makes you comfortable, more so at a young age. It should be the hunger in your belly which should make you an entrepreneur by spending sleepless night to convert your ideas with the opportunity that is there into business entities. And as I said, there was general reluctance for people to be an entrepreneur from the society side, from the family side, saying that there is a risk involved. Why do you want to take the risk? And those who defy the risk, they are the successful people today in the society, and they will be the successful people in the society, irrespective of the fact that some of them might fail. Because when somebody becomes an entrepreneur, despite the best that they have, not necessarily they will be very successful always, because there will be a very complicated dynamics that moves, which many a times throws this successful entrepreneur, even after achieving success, may bring them failure. And one of the biggest example for this is the COVID period. During the COVID period, because of the lockdown, shutdown, etc., etc., many of the successful entrepreneurs were made insolvent because there was absolute zero business during that period. But still, within that, people have survived and people have restarted. And today, those people have come out more successful with flying colors than what possibly they were doing in the past. Now, as you know, today is the generation for startups. Now, what is a startup? A startup is an idea with some technology input. Now, the old idea that you can do business without technology has become redundant. So, you need to have idea, you need to have the culture of business. You must know how this small idea can be converted into something which will be scaling up to make it a large scale business and to get the benefit of a large scale size in order to achieve the success. Government of India has been giving multiple incentive and business, including the support of capital. There are various funds. If you have a good idea, you get the support from the angel fund, the SIDBI fund, the high net worth individuals also. In fact, when I visited San Francisco in 2015, as part of a delegation of Government of Odisha as President of Thai Bhubaneswar, the restaurant where we had food, the restaurant owner came to us and said, "This is the table where the Facebook 4 entrepreneurs, the Google 5 entrepreneurs, startup entrepreneurs, they were having coffee here and they were discussing hours and hours. And now, what they are, because they started in a very humble, small way as a startup today. So, just don't bother that because you are starting small, you will remain small. It is when you start small, you scale it up, you know it has a market, it has a technology supporting it, it is going to reach every individual. Today, it has become a global village. So, whether you are in Bhubaneswar, like I am talking to you while I am in Patna, I am not in Bhubaneswar. I am very much in Patna attending a social function, but in the afternoon I am able to talk to you. So, in the digital era, so you are connected to every person in the world in a click of a second. So, the idea of becoming a startup is very prevalent. Now you have multiple unicorn in the system. You have many of them who are from Odisha also. So location doesn't matter. Your what is your background doesn't matter. What is important is whether you have a solid idea which can capitalize and exploit the market situation for the benefit of public. Now, while doing so, now always a very important aspect is the ease of doing business. What comes on the way of a ease of doing business is the regulatory framework. Now, whenever you want to do something, there is always a regulation which comes as a bottleneck. Now, it is the duty of the government through its policy help ease the business doing, and also the regulatory framework in doing the regulatory framework in such a manner that it is not coming as a hurdle, not coming as a deterrent, but as a support. Because if you want to do a business, you can't do anything that you like. You can't cut forest, you can't spoil the environment, you can't do something which is affecting the money laundering, you can't to bring in cash. If you are earning money, you have to pay taxes. If you are selling commodities, you have to pay GST. So you have to stay in a regulatory framework, and more the complicated society, the more the legal hurdle that you have. So it is the regulatory framework. Therefore, it is very essential that every individual who wants to come into the business must have a basic understanding of the law, or must know how to navigate in a regulatory environment. Now, in any business, it is the managing finance which is very important, and I belong to that category also. The managing finance, many times people ignore it and people fail. It is said that the Kingfisher airline, the arrogant Vijay Mallya, did not listen to his director of finance when he said, "You don't expand in this manner. You have to go step by step. You must know in what way you should move." He defied, saying, "Look, you are my employee. I am the owner. I am the proprietor. Now my decision is final. Who are you to come on the way?" And you know what happened to Vijay Mallya. Many a times, the arrogance of the entrepreneurs comes on the way of the entrepreneurs. And I can tell you, when I move in Oxford Street in London, I see many of the establishment which writes since 1874. That is, you find many of the business houses who are 100-year-old, 200-year-old, or many of them have a sustainability. But you don't find that model in India, because I have a feeling that the sustainability of Indian business houses are far shorter than the tenure of business life of any European or American model of business. And you hardly find a business house who are more than 50-year-old or 100-year-old in India. And one of the reasons that I have identified is not only the arrogance or lack of risk management of the entrepreneurs, but also the good corporate governance that they need to follow. And as you all know, today is the day of corporate governance, where the owner is not the absolute owner, or should not be taking all the decision that they like to do. Because an individual can be impulsive, but a collective impulsiveness don't generally take place. When you are in a group, you are in a board, you need that decision should be taken. No individual can be overpowering the board, nor a good board or a company with good corporate governance will be overpowered by the owner's stake. That is why, for the information of the students, that the corporate governance is getting important. The various committees and the board governance process is becoming uh, more and more rational and balanced. Now, managing finance as to how to get the money, how to spend the money. When you spend for capital expenditure, you know what IRR to be followed, what is the payback period to be followed, what is the break even to be added to, how it should be rationalized, how it should be sustained, what is the time when somebody should go for expansion, whether expansion is desirable, or you should sustain more time than going for a quick expansion. If you don't go for expansion, maybe you will become obsolete. Maybe if you don't upgrade your technology and equipment, you may become obsolete soon. You may become redundant soon. And no business house should be static. That is one of the fundamental principle, that you should not be static in your business, because once you are static, that is the process of receding that comes. That means you are slowly coming down. You must grow to sustain at 8 to 10% or 12%, maybe you should be in a position to grow to attract this market. Market, when I say market, I mean capital market, that you should be able to grow at 18 to 20%. And at the same time, you should be doing something new in order to be in the business. Because as you know, in the law of economics, if you don't do anything new, the new players will come and slowly swallow you. So it is very important that you keep moving forward with technology and innovation, which should be a continuous affair. You look at the car manufacturers, they don't remain static while they are in production, even for a very good brand. Their research team is continuously working to have 3, 4, 5, 10 models of new cars while the existing popular brands are going on. You will see when in our generation, Toyota had come out Qualis, it is a van or a jeep like. Now they suspended it, and we were thinking what a foolish company Toyota is, that they have stopped manufacturing such a nice brand of vehicle. Then they came with Innova, which was far superior than Qualis. So if you remain static, then your existence itself will be under doubt. And also, if you don't change with time, you will also perish in no time. One of the biggest example which you must be studying in your classroom is the Kodak film. At one time they were ruling, and within no time they vanished also. And today the technology has been handled by this instrument. Now with this, you don't require even a computer, you don't require a camera, you don't require anything, everything is with this. So the technology is the real driver, and we are also in the generation of technology where we are threatened by artificial intelligence. In 2000, I still remember, the bank employees went on strike. They thought with the introduction of computer, the banking industry will squeeze the scope of employment. Now all of you know the size of business of banks in 2000 has gone multiple time than what it is today, and that is also possible because they are able to use the facility of computer. I was in the board of Bank of Baroda, and I was the chairman of the technology committee of the board. Now the GM technology invited me to see the platform of computerization. He showed me one dedicated tower for the technology and said, sir, on a click, the bank, which has got more than 7,000 branches and 26 countries operation, on a click, they will get the balance sheet of all of the consolidation, including the individual vertical performance. So technology is very important, and all the entrepreneurs who wants to go must work with the technology on their side. If you are away from technology, obviously you will not be able to sustain, and somebody else is going to swallow you in the process. Now, as you know, the government initiatives are very strongly coming today. The Make in Odisha, the startup policies, the MSME policy, the Odisha government policy, the government of India policy, and all of them are directed to produce more and more, to export more and more, and to reduce import more and more. And what is important is for all of us to know what are the policies that are favorable and how we can take advantage of going with the government policy are very, very important. But many times the government themselves fault on the policies, and many times the entrepreneur also suffers. I can share today that not only the government but the court also faults. If you look at the coal policy, people investing a lot of money in coal mines, one order of the Supreme Court struck everything. So all the money of the banks and the promoters went down the drain. Similarly, the 2G policy in those days came heavily on the entrepreneurs, and all their investments were all totally lost because the court order came against them, and it was scrapped. So many a times the government itself becomes a deterrent, and also the court. Uh, Many times the uncertainties in our laws do affect this. Now, we also have a constraint in India about the logistics and infrastructure. We are improving in a great way. As you know, you have the freight corridors coming up from one place to the other, because our logistic cost is 12 to 15% costlier than any other developed countries, and that is why many times we are not competitive when we are able to, when we want to sell in the global market. And keeping that in mind, today government is working hard, and you know, the government of India spends more than 10 to 15 lakh crore on infrastructure itself. This is one of the highest spending by government of India, surpassing its own best as 5 lakh crore, and it will keep on increasing. It will also go for public private partnership PPP mode of developing the infrastructure. Our infrastructure is still in a very infant stage, and we need to improve our infrastructure in order to catch up with the western and developed world. Till that time, we need to cut our cost in some other areas to be globally competitive, and that is why it is always a challenge for government of India, because the export is not rising. Our current account deficit is on the increase. Our petroleum products and the electronic goods import is going up and up, but at the same time our export is not able to meet. That is one of the reasons why the dollar appreciates and the rupee depreciates. Now, for every entrepreneur, as I told you earlier, that when to develop and when not to develop, the risk management is very important. And when we say risk, it doesn't mean that you should not take risk, but you must know your risk, you must assess your risk, you must calculate your risk, and you must know how to mitigate the risk also. So many times, the expansion model of our business houses is so impulsive that they are not able to assess the risk, and therefore they run into problem. And that is how NCLT, the company law tribunal, now is there to address the issue. But it is very important that people and the students like you must know what is risk management, and also how to adapt to economic changes and have the sustainability is very important. Let me tell you, the journey of a businessman in India, uh, or even in Odisha context, is a very tough challenge, and that is why the failure of the our businessman many times threatens new entrepreneurs to come in. And I won't say that that should be a deterrent for us, because all those who have failed, apart from government fault, they also have their own fault. Many times they don't have adequate capital. Many times the bank don't come to their rescue when deserving cases are there. Many times the peripheral government departments don't support the cause of industrialization and sustainability of business. So, while it is a big challenge for an entrepreneur, but it is a highly rewarding for any entrepreneur when they are successful, they are recognized, they are invited, and they have their own satisfaction because they are contributing to the society. Now, dear friends, uh, I would love to have some questions in the process, but I have no intention, honestly, to bore you for a very long time, because I think this itself has been a quite a long speech, or a long deliberation from my side. I might have bored many of you in the process, but I just thought I'll touch upon some of the subject, because the subject is such I could have gone for hours and hours, and you would have started abusing me more and more. I will not do that. I will not take that risk, though I am not at a uh, hand stretching distance from Delhi. So, thank you very much. And do ask questions if you think I can answer.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much, sir.